you share a favorite childhood memory that still brings you joy?
That's a good question. My godfather was a pilot, and some of my favorite childhood memories were going in his small feeder plane and being in the cockpit and looking at the controls and just watching the sky. Like, you just realize how big the world was. That was my favorite childhood memory. Actually, anything with my family and my godparents. My godparents used to make a lot of things for me. They were very active in my life, and my family was very active in my life. I got a lot of favorite childhood memories. Like, it's kind of hard to summarize it into one thing. Like getting up on Sunday morning and you knew it was time to clean up because your mama was playing some old school music, or you smelled some food cooking, or being excited on Saturday because I'm old and that's when cartoons came on. So you waited all week to watch the Jetsons and all this type of stuff. Like, those were my memories, just how favorite memories, just the simplicity of food. Maybe that was what led me into my career, is just food. But those are my favorite childhood memories. Just being in the sky with my godfather, flying, listening to my mother with music and cartoons and cooking. Those are my favorite childhood memories. Of course, Christmas, because who don't like gifts, right? But I have a lot, so it's kind of hard to summarize.
What is the most meaningful compliment you received, and why did it stand out to you?
Oh, that's good. Saturday night. I have a motto that I live my life by. I do everything in love. Kindness in love, anger in love, I do it in love. But one of the best compliments that I was ever given was Saturday. I had an extremely awful day. Business-wise, people-wise, it was one of those days where it was like, I didn't want to cook. I went to a restaurant in Elk Grove that I kept getting information on because, as I said before, gastronomy is my thing. So I went to patronize this restaurant, and when I went, I just had the best service, and we just started talking, and I just went into this long conversation with the bartender and the gentleman that was at the door and the waitress and the cook, without even knowing that these people own the restaurant. And we just had the best conversation. And we had kind of talked about hospitality, and I was sharing with them how bad my day was. And when it was time to settle up, I had asked for the bill. And the bartender, I didn't know that this was a family-owned operation. The father, the daughter, who was the waitress, the daughter's daughter was the bartender, and the guy at the door, the cook, was the son. And they all sat back and decided who was going to pay for my bill for me. And when I asked her for the bill, she said, "Oh, it's already taken care of." And I was like, "What? What do you mean it's taken care of?" And she was like, "We just had the best time with you." They would say, "Because your heart is so good and you're so genuine. And we just wanted to do something nice for you because we could feel your energy when you came in the room. And then when you sat and you had a conversation with us, we just seen that about you, and we just wanted to do something nice." And to me, like, you can hear people say that you're pretty, or, you do these things, but the best compliment to me is when someone actually sees your heart. And in that moment, I needed that more than I ever thought that I did. But just to be reminded that there's a sweetness to your energy, and no matter what you're going through, when it's in you, it gives off. And for somebody else to see that, and not just somebody to see that, but all of these people to see that, and the fact that they thought so much of that energy, not so much of me, but of the energy, that they wanted to do something kind. And that was the sweetest compliment.
What is gastronomy?
Gastronomy is the study, and there's also the ability to curate experiences that have to do with all the things that I love, which kind of takes me back to your first question about my favorite childhood memories. It has to do with food, it has to do with beverages, it has to do with travel, and it has to do with culture. Most of the time you see it in the sense of food and beverages and travel, which are all things that I absolutely love because I'm an experienced person. And gastronomy is not only the study of it, it's people who live their lives doing that. So whether it's their career path, it's their hobby, what they go to with their education, it's just pretty much, it's just like living your life in the study of curating experiences, which is 100% what I'm all about. So I guess my childhood kind of created the path for that.
Can you tell us about your wine journey?
So my wine journey began in 2012. I was in the process of a divorce, and I think I started liking wine more than I probably thought I ever did. And in that, in liking wine, I started to get curious about, in the process of a divorce, I was thinking, how do I reinvent myself? And I've always known self, but I was creating a new identity. So before I got married, I knew who Chandell was as the single, unmarried person. But when I got married, my life was Chandell, the married person. And in the process of a divorce, I was trying to figure out who Chandell, the single person, was again. So I was thinking of things that I wanted to do, like what type of businesses. And clearly I was liking wine because it was probably helping me get through my frustration. But I started getting really curious about wine, like why did it taste that? And I started to notice that my curiosity was a little bit more in depth than people around me. So people would just drink wine and it's like, oh, it's good, it goes with a meal, whatever. And that's a beautiful thing. But I started becoming overly curious is what makes that glass? Like, what's the experience? What's the love that's put into it? How does it get into the glass? Like, what is the process of the grape that grows in the vineyard? How do the people who care for the vineyards, do they love what they do? Do they love, inspecting it? Do they love fertilizing it? Do they love that? And then when it goes from the grape being taken from the vine and it goes through the crush process, when it's with the enology and the winemaker and the crush people, what love is put into that? Like for me, like when I managed one tasting room, I used to sing to my wine. If people don't know that, I would go in the cellar by myself and I would sing to my wine because it's a love process. And then, when it comes through crush and it goes through the fermentation and the bottling process, like what's that about, right? And then what's the mindset of the people who create it? Are you just doing it? Are you a big conglomerate? So it's just like quantity? Is it about quality? Like, what is it? And then after the bottling process, when it gets to the packaging process, and from the packaging process, when it gets to the distribution, and the distribution to when it gets to the store, or it gets to the tasting room, or it gets to the party, who are the people that touch it at that point? When it goes to pouring it into your glass, because it's so much more than the liquid that's in your glass. I really got geeked out over it. So I started studying it, and I had a partner, and we had a 15-passenger tour bus that sat in Benicia, and then we didn't see eye to eye on how we wanted to run business. And I decided that at that point, I was going to really start doing a lot of research. But one of the things that really got me into wine as a melanated woman, first of all, African Americans in the wine industry is such a small percentage. I don't even think we probably hit 5%. If we're even that. I'll give 10% on a good day, but I don't even think we hit the mark in that. And it's always been a manly network. So to be an African American and then to be a woman in any type of field in wine, that was a big thing. But as I started breaking from my partnership, again, this was another loss, right? So I started breaking from my partnership and going to different vineyards just to satisfy that curiosity that I had. I started noticing I did not see a lot of people who look like me. And I wanted to research even more. As you can see, I'm a research person. Things have to make sense to me. I'm a why person. So I'm like, well, why are we not here? Is it because the industry is discriminatory, or what is it? So I took a whole year and I went from the California-Oregon border all the way into the Valle de Guadalupe area of Mexico. And I started networking with vineyards, and I started networking with tasting rooms, and I started listening and seeing. And I realized that it's not always a discriminatory thing. It's a verbiage thing, because people are talking over our heads. So like myself, for example, I didn't grow up hearing people talk about that peaches was a stone fruit. So if I go into a tasting room, and again, because it's not an area that's really dominated by melanation, that melanation could be African American, it could be Hispanic American, it could be Asian American, it can be anything that's considered minority. I didn't see a lot of people in that. You see it in concentrated areas where there's a heavy level of tourism, like your Napas, your Lodi's. But when you start getting into like Amador counties, or you start getting into Placer counties, or just different places where there's not a lot of heavy traffic coming in because they're not known areas. So what is it? Like I started wondering, like, well, why is it that they're not there? And once I realized it was a verbiage issue, that it's not always discriminatory, it's because we're not actually coming to those areas. And it started making me think about business. And one of the things I've always been taught in my professional career is when you write things, you always write at a 6th grade level, and then you throw those certain words that pertain to things, because you need to keep it as simple as possible. And then I started realizing, if we know better, we'll do better. So I started wanting to educate people. And I started wanting to do things where I would bring the experience to the person. I would teach you at the basic level possible, because everybody's not a geeked out person like me. Because really, when it comes to wine, wine is not complicated. You like it or you don't. It's really simple. It only becomes pretentious when people want to be better than or make themselves feel better than. Because let's be realistic. That goes back to what I was saying about tasting notes. If I come into a winery and I'm tasting something and you're like, oh, it's like stone fruit on the dew on a dusty morning. What is that? What is that? Can you tell me what a stone fruit is? Because if I taste it, I know what peaches taste like. I know what bananas taste like. I know what grapefruit tastes like. I know what tart is. I know what harsh is. I know these things. I know if it burns when I drink it. I know if it's too dry or if it's too sweet. We all know those things. Why not teach people at the basic levels? With that in education, I did I didn't want to be a som because I didn't want to be boxed into a restaurant. Aquarius, I'm not a boxy person. You can't box me into anything, but really wanted to explore every detail about it. So I started becoming educated in it, in a platform to where I wasn't boxing as a som, but had the education of a som. And I was able to come out and do more of a concierge type thing where I could go out and actually teach people and not be boxed in. And then that was cool. But then I realized, again, going back to being melanated in a world of wine, it doesn't matter how much I know, because in the most humblest way possible, I could talk circles around most people when it comes to wine, because I'm a geek when it comes to that. However, just because you could talk circles around people doesn't mean people are going to respect you without the credentials that you have, because it's a male-dominated world, and it's just now kind of opening up to women, and it's really just opening up to African Americans. So I decided to go back to school to get my degree in viticulture, because now I could talk circles around you, but I have the paper to back it up too. So I kind of went on a tangent talking, but really I got into wine because I just wanted to know more. It all became about a love thing, become passionate. So when I talk about gastronomy is passion. Passionate about experiences. I'm passionate about food. I'm passionate about travel. I'm passionate about beverages. So that geeked out glass that I'm looking at is more than liquid. I want to know what's the story behind the wine, who touched it, what happened, how did it get to the wine? Because when it's in that glass and that person's drinking it, I want that glass to be a love experience. So either you really love it because you like it, or you really hate it, because that's a form of love too. It's a reversal of love. So that's kind of my story with that.
Can you share a painful experience that you went through that you never thought you would recover from? One that you don't mind sharing with us.
So after my divorce, it took me 5 years to decide to date. I had people I was cool with, but I had a high boundary wall around me. And after 5 years, I met this gentleman, and he said all the right things and he did all the right things. And we dated for a while, and we talked about marriage. He was a single father to 2 young boys at his house, and he had a really, really big house. And I was renting my house at the time. So he convinced me, since we were talking marriage, to move in with him. And if I had a crystal ball to know that 6 months after dating him for a year, 6 months after I moved into that house, I would be leaving to save my life. He was extremely abusive, mentally, verbally, and physically. And he was a cheater. And the day that I moved out of that house, he moved the woman he was cheating with in the house. And a couple months after I had moved out, I saw some mutual friends of ours that were friends of his, and I saw the wife of the friend, and she was happy to see me because I hadn't seen her in a while, because we had a really genuine acquaintanceship. And I had just asked the question, so how was he doing? And she proceeded to tell me he had twins on the way. And I have had a journey with fertility. I lost a child, and at the time of our relationship, we had looked into IVF and doing testing. And in the process of doing testing, where they put a dye inside of your private area to ensure that there's no blockages or closures or ruptures in your fallopian tubes, I discovered that I am almost deathly allergic to iodine. And the reason I discovered that is because I have a condition called chronic cough from postnasal drip and allergies. So when they did it in my arm, it caused me to, I had to take like 3 different steroids, a pill, a shot, a cream, all kind of stuff, because it did something to my body. So I would not allow them to do that to my reproductive system, because I didn't know what would happen to it. So we didn't go through with that. And when I found out that he was carrying twins, and to go back to my divorce, the reason we divorced is because my husband at the time was cheating with his coworker and got her pregnant. So backtrack to this story 5 years later. I mentally snapped. I lost it, and I went into a depression for 3 years, consistently questioning myself, like what happened was I not good enough? Was something wrong with me? Was something wrong with my body? And in the process of that, when I saw the friend and the friend had told me that he had twins on the way, I immediately made an appointment with my OBGYN because now I really wanted to know if something was wrong with me. My doctor wasn't available, so I saw another doctor that happened to be an African-American doctor. And in that first visit, when she was checking my reproductive system, she mentioned to me if I knew I had fibroids. And I did not know that I had fibroids. And because she felt so many of them, she was concerned. So she sent me to do an ultrasound. And when they did the ultrasound, they found many golf-sized fibroids in my reproductive organs. And that caused concern for her. So she had me go see a specialist. And when I seen the specialist, they did an MRI. And the MRI found that my whole reproductive system was covered in fibroids. And my personal OBGYN had never told me that. And I had just seen her 6 months prior for a routine pap smear. I was regular with my pap smears, and I had to have a hysterectomy, or at least it was presented to me that I needed to have a hysterectomy. And that is when I spiraled out of control, because I felt like not only did this man do to me what the prior man had did, but then I was robbed of that experience for myself. And at the time that happened, we had just went into the pandemic. So the pandemic happened March of 2020. I had my hysterectomy like the first week of June of 2020. It was a process. It was a process. That was hard because I went into, like I said, I went into a deep depression. And because the world had shut down, my outlet was to always travel. If I was frustrated, if I was mad about something, I'd passport up. I was out. I'd go take a quick trip to somewhere in the Caribbean or somewhere else. I'd digress and I'd come back. But I had no choice but to sit in all that, reprocess my divorce trauma, reprocess the trauma of someone that I opened myself up to 5 years later who claimed that they loved me, will put their hands on me. He literally tried to kill me and cheat on me. I'm out, she's in, and then she's pregnant and a hysterectomy. So that was a lot for me.
What helped you move past it?
God. And the reason I say that is not just like, oh, I just trusted God. I was angry with God. I grew up knowing God, but I never was taught that you could question God. And when the pandemic hit, I was like pissed. You couldn't go to church anyway, but I didn't want to pray. I didn't want to do nothing. I didn't want to do that. And I remember the week before the world had kind of shut down, to travel a lot for work. And I was getting ready to make a trip to San Diego for work. I was talking to one of my coworkers, and I don't know how we got on the subject of children and losing children or fertility issues, but we started talking about that. She had PCOS or endometriosis. I don't remember what she had, but I remember she wanted a child more than anything. And when she had to have her hysterectomy, she was in her 30s, and she was so angry with God, she became Wiccan. She became a witch, like Wiccan. And I remember listening to her story. Now, this is around the time I knew I was having a hysterectomy, but it was coming like months later in June. This was in March of 2020. And I just remember thinking, like, I understood why she was mad, but I didn't want to like turn my back on her so one of the things that I did not share is in the process of all this, I'm also a suicide survivor that a lot of people don't know. And I remember at one of those low moments in my depression, being in the bathtub and just not wanting to deal with anything anymore. And I had went down in the water. And I remember, first of all, it was the stupidest thing. It was like, oh my God, my hair flows in the water. That was stupid. But I thought that. And then after that, I just thought, I just don't want to hurt anymore. And I always thought that was weak. I thought that's what weak people did. And I was never a weak person. But I didn't realize that was all going to become part of my testimony later, is that sometimes we have to be broken to the lowest level possible. So in that, I remember what I can share with you about that is when you are in that type of mindset, only two things happen because you're not within your own mind. Either destruction happens and you actually take your own life, or something so much greater than you saves you from yourself. And I remember being in that bathtub underwater after I was like, your hair flows. Like God saved me from myself. And I remember God saving me from myself. It's like he literally came down with his hands and pulled me out the water and he said one word to me. He said, live. And I've been living unapologetically ever since that. But back to what was originally asked to me is what got me through is that's why I never wanted to fully turn my back on God, because even though I was angry with him and I was very verbal with him about being angry, I still had the faith of a mustard seed. Like probably not even a millimeter, but I had the faith of a mustard seed. And I just remember, like I said, the pandemic happened. So everything shut down. I had no outlet. I couldn't passport out. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go get something to eat because everything has shut down. It was literally me in this room with these walls, like a movie was just playing all this traumatic stuff over and over and over. And I remember being really mad at God and was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I don't even have much to give you. But if you want me to get through this, you're going to have to do it because I'm done. I'm done. And that's literally what he did. In the process of that, I am very grateful for the pandemic in the sense that because I was isolated and I have always, I don't want to say run, but like I said, I will passport out. I will go vacation, digress, and come back. But that never solved the problem. But in the process of that, sitting in those walls, being really mad at God, what I realized is that sometimes God will tell you no. And it's okay when he tells you no. And it's a painful thing when he tells you no. But he tells you no because he has something so much greater for you. And even though I went through things that were extremely traumatic to me, nothing was more traumatic than not being able to birth a child and being a mother. And I was very angry with him about that and the way that it came about and the processes and things that I had to go through with that. But even though he didn't physically give me the things that I wanted, what he gave me is a peace that surmounts all joy. So the world could be falling apart around me, and I am cool, calm, and collected because I know that there's peace that absolutely resides within me. And that's how I got through. I got through because I was mad at God and I was forthright mad at God and I was ready to fight. But I still held on to the little bit of faith that I had, And it was enough for me to be vulnerable and honest and sit through my shit. And really look at me and look at my life and look at the things that happened and what did I play a part on and why did things go bad? And I realized that things went bad because I stopped trusting. And I thought I could do everything. I could fix everything. I could mend everything. And I couldn't. And God loved me so much that he put me in the most hurtful, vulnerable place where I didn't have a choice but to trust. I went a little bit. And that's what got me through. It took some time. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't think I just sat there and we had a talk and this movie was playing on my walls and I was just better. I wasn't. It took time, like literally from 2020 to 2024. It took years, but I got through because he gave me a peace and I became okay when God tells me no. But I had to go through a whole bunch of shit to be okay with God telling me no. And I also realized that in that, I've only shared that one time. I used to be a minister and I only shared that one time in a sermon, but a lot of people don't know that I'm a suicide survivor. And it's not weak when you have those moments. And I realized for me that God had to use something I thought was weak to break me because my calling is to be transparent and be vulnerable, to not be afraid to speak and to not be camera shy or be any of those things and to not be afraid to tell my story because sometimes your testimony is not about you. Your testimony is the test that you go through for the testimony is because at some point in your life, you're going to have to speak that. And even if people aren't as forthcoming or transparent as you are, doesn't mean that people don't listen. And sometimes people just need to know that they're not alone or it's okay or they could get through it. So I realized that I was broken in that situation because one day it was meant for me to share that, to let another woman know, like, it's okay if you lose your mind, girl. It's okay. It's okay if you disconnect. It's okay if you are hurt. It's okay if you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's okay that you are in pain. I'm talking about pain where I wasn't crying. I was wailing because I was in that much pain. But you just got to trust that you'll get through it. And that's what got me through, is just being willing. That's what I should say. That's what got me through, is being willing to sit in my shit. Being willing to sit in my shit. Being willing to deal with the hurt. Being willing to not just cry, but scream from the pit of my stomach in pain, because it couldn't be removed if I wasn't willing to deal with it. And that's how I got through.
If you can go back and tell that Chandell one thing, one piece of advice, what is that one piece of advice you would give her?
Honey, walk away and trust your instincts. And I guess the real piece of advice that I would give her is that in anything, potential is not enough, because potential could be a facade. The potential that you give to yourself, the potential that somebody else gives to you, and I'm not even just talking about in a relationship form, is that potential is not enough, but you are. And it doesn't matter how difficult it is, you can and you will get through it. You just got to sit in your shit, and you are stronger than you ever believe that you are. And don't be afraid of your test, because it's your testimony. And at some point, not only is your testimony going to make you proud of who you are, because I could tell you right now, honey, I am so proud of me. Anybody that knows me knows I love me some me. I love me some me. And I'm not afraid to be accountable because of the things that happen to me. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. But I'm going to be accountable. But I'm not afraid to sit in my shit. And I'm not afraid to say, this shit stank. And I need to do something to fix it. But that's the advice that I would give myself, is potential is not enough.
Who has been the most influential in who you are today?
My mommy. And a lot of people see the relationship that I have with my mom, and they don't realize that we have that relationship because I worked my ass off to get that. And I think a lot of times we don't realize that our parents have stories too. And our parents have some traumas, and our parents have their own childhood wounds and things that they didn't get enough of, or things that have happened to them, or even what your parents may have gone through and how it just trickles down. But that has been my most influential relationship, because she is such a class act. She is so regal, and she is so classy, and she is just like a joy. And when I look at her, if I could be just half of the woman that she is, because her heart is the best thing about her. If I could just be half of the woman that she is, I'm doing okay. And I think I'm a little bit more than half. So she's my greatest inspiration, because she is love. She is the epitome of love. She loves with her whole heart, even when she's mad. Like I said, it's love or hate is a reversal of love. And she's passionate about whatever she does. When she loves, she's passionate. When she's angry, she's a Taurus. They're kind of crazy. Yeah, if you back her in a corner, she's passionate about what she has too. So yeah, she is my greatest inspiration, because she is so giving. And she's bossy. And I'm bossy too. Not as bossy. And she's fiery. But yeah, she's my greatest inspiration.
If your life were a book, what would the title be and why?
Roller Coasters and Rainbows of Wordplay, baby. That's what my book would be called. Roller Coasters and Rainbows of Wordplay. And why? Because wordplay is fun. Wordplay it takes you on different emotions. Words either make you mad, or they make you angry, or they make you think. They can take you on a journey that could be lyrical, like an Aquarius like me. I'm all over the place. But roller coasters, because it's like life. There's always ups and downs. But you know what? At the end of the roller coaster, you get off of it and you're like, ooh, I want to do that again. But that's not why. That's why it would be called that. Roller coasters and rainbows of wordplay. Oh, and rainbows, because who doesn't like a rainbow? After the storm, there's a rainbow. What is the rainbow? The rainbow is the promise that you're going to be okay, no matter what.
Love it.
Roller coasters and rainbows of wordplay.
What does the term raising the bar mean to you?
No limitations. No limitations. No limitations on anything. And constantly being better. Not than anybody else, but being better than who you were the day before. To just consistently elevate. You raise the bar. You just get better. Because you get better because there's no limitations. That's what I think it means.
Last one.
Okay.
What do you want your legacy to be when you're no longer here? What do you want to be remembered by?
I guess kind of what I portray in life now. That she lived life and she loved with everything inside of her. That's what I want my legacy. That's how I live my life. That's what I want my legacy to be about. I thought about that, like when God calls me home. That's what I hope people say, is that girl lived life. She constantly raised the bar, right? She wasn't afraid. She wasn't afraid to be by herself. She wasn't afraid to date herself. She wasn't afraid to date herself in a relationship, out of relationship. She wasn't afraid. She was so content and peaceful with the life that she wants for herself. And if she has to be in it by herself, she's okay with that. Because she's constantly raising the bar for herself. She's constantly making things better for herself. That's what I want my legacy to be. That I lived life to the fullest and that I loved with everything inside of me and that my energy was genuine.